What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Coast to Coast podcast. Today, it's just me, Liam, and we're going to do a little mini-series where we start breaking down individual prospects as we lead up to the 2023 NBA Draft. Today, I want to highlight a super athlete, not the Thompson twins, but a guy that plays in college. Big physical frame, coming from the University of Villanova. That's Cam Whitmore. So let's dive into his tape and see what he has to offer and translate at the next level. Like I mentioned to start this video off, one of the first things that comes to mind when you think of Cam Whitmore is explosive physical athlete. Coming in at 6'7", 230 pounds, Whitmore is very similar to players such as Miles Bridges and Aaron Gordon when they were coming out of college. In terms of the offensive player type, I think a shot-creating slasher is exactly what I would label Whitmore as. A good solid handle for his size, allows him to be able to get through into the lane. And, a fantastic slasher. While some may label him more as a three-level scorer, I definitely need to see an improved three-point jumper before I can really nail that label on him. Then defensively, this guy is extremely active on the defensive end. With that 6'7" frame in the athleticism he possesses, he is a physical, active defender, like I mentioned. Whether that be getting into passing lanes, making stops at the rim. This is definitely a guy who can be not only a good individual defender, but as well as a team defender. In terms of the draft range for Whitmore, I definitely think he falls within that lottery range. I think he could go potentially as high as number 6 overall, but he could definitely go as low as the late lottery as well. And when it comes to teams that I think would best fit for Whitmore, I think Charlotte, Portland, and Atlanta would all be great fits. And, as we do a little bit more of a dive into Whitmore, it's because he needs elite point guard play, I believe, in order to be successful, because while he does have a good handle, he is not someone that you want to trust as your primary or secondary ball handler. So, like I mentioned, most explosive player in this class who does not have the last name Thompson, in my opinion, and especially at that big of a frame. The Thompson twins are a lot more skinnier than he is, while Whitmore is a big physical presence out there. As I mentioned, a three-point jumper is streaky, but that could also be a result of him rehabbing from the thumb injury, which kept him out from the start of the collegiate season. However, I wouldn't expect for him to shoot higher than around 37% throughout his career, as that's not really where his strengths come to mind. He can, though, become an elite player in the transition, but he just needs to learn how to pass the rock. Kind of similar to how Michael Porter Jr. With the Nuggets benefits to having such a great play by Nikola Jokic as a passer. He does struggle in order to, pass out in situations. Whitmore does. As you can see through the tape here on the screen. Defensively, as I mentioned, very active in the passing lanes, and his athleticism will allow for him, despite if he gets blown by quicker guards, to be able to collect himself and make stops at the rim. In terms of his ceiling, I think he projects as a great third option on a championship team if he were to reach that level, and I think his ceiling would only be able to get higher if he learns how to use those handles and that shot creating to help his teammates get shots as well, because that's been a downfall of his game. As I said, does not want to be a primary or secondary ball handler on a winning team, and someone that could definitely be labeled as an empty stats person if he ends up in the wrong situation. So two of the games that I watched that really drew my attention to Whitmore were a loss versus Xavier and a loss versus Providence, where I mentioned he did show those defensive abilities, also the ability to be able to dominate, on the scoring end in the Big East. I do, though, like I mentioned, needs to be able to get those passes off to his teammates, because he has tunnel vision when he drives sometimes, and when he has teammates open in the corners or on the perimeter, he needs to be able to get those passes off to his teammates. In terms of the takeaways from the tape, definitely would have benefited from having Jay Wright as the coach there at Villanova, who's had a phenomenal job of developing NBA talent as of lately, with players such as Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Josh Hart all having success at the NBA level. He does know that he's strong, but sometimes he needs to realize that That's not always going to be the way he's going to need to finish at the rim, especially when there's multiple defenders. And at the physicality of the NBA level, it's going to be a lot different than playing basketball in the Big East. However, the signs of shot creation are very promising with the activity on defense. Definitely not a raw prospect, but still has plenty of work to be done. And I think in the right system can be an early contributor if put in the right spot. In terms of rookie year prediction, I'd have Whitmore around 12 points a game, 6 rebounds, a steal, shooting rather inefficient from 3, but I really do hope he ends up with one of the 3 teams that I laid out. Especially a team like Portland, they did lose Josh Hart, and to be able to have Lillard and Simons be the guys that can handle the ball for him and, allow Whitmore to, be a guy that can cut, maybe get open for those catch and shoot threes and just be disruptive defensively. I think that'd be a great pick, but that would require for him to fall later in the draft. But as we see in the past, some teams, if they see a guy, there's no hesitation to want to trade up. At the end of the day, I think Whitmore is a very promising prospect. Through watching the tape, my opinions have changed. At first, I was really high on him. Now I've taken a little bit of a step back after seeing, his inability to want to pass and, relying too much on his physical game. But definitely could see him turn into an impactful, role player like a Aaron Gordon, or maybe even be one of the team's top scorers like a Miles Bridges. But without further ado, this has been Coast to Coast Podcast. Thank you for listening to this breakdown, and we'll be back at you. Peace.